Welcome to the 5 points a day. Oh, instead of questions, this time we'll go for 5 points. And these points are to help you ace PMP 2021. This is volume 32. Now, these 5 points are taken from one of the very nicely made books called Ninja Notes. It's doing rather well on all sites of Amazon, and it's available in Kindle as well as paperback. Now, in India and some other countries in Asia, this is only available in Kindle version. It's completely color. The paperback is available in Canada, US, and certain countries of Europe. And that paperback also is completely color, all color from inside. And it not only makes it interesting, this book is packed with every conceivable note that you would need to not only pass PMP Exams 2021, but to also ace it. All right, let's go through at least the 5 of those right now. Well, let's look at point number 1, the power interest grid. Now, this is the most popular grid for prioritization of stakeholders. Now, what does it mean? You see, if you look at high power, high interest, that means people who are not only interested in the outcome of the project, but also have a major impact on the outcome. They are called key stakeholders. These guys have to be managed closely. So, what is the philosophy or the strategy for managing high power, high interest or primary stakeholders? Well, you manage them closely. They are the main core of the project. But then there are a group of stakeholders who can be labeled as dangerous stakeholders. Imagine a group of stakeholders who have high power but have no consequences if the project doesn't happen. That means they have low interest. Now, these people, you need to keep them satisfied. Now, remember, keeping somebody satisfied is not necessarily as keeping them close. It simply means that, well, keep them off, keep them only take care of what they've asked for, make sure that they don't get involved beyond a particular point, and that's it. So keep them satisfied. Now, when it comes to low power, high interest, that means people who have a lot of stake in the outcome of the project, either way, but they do not have any impact or power to affect the outcome of the project. These guys, they do not have to be handled on a daily basis because they don't have any impact on the outcome of the project, but they are affected by the outcome, and therefore it's best that we keep them informed. Right? So you'll find that these are the stakeholders. If you cannot keep them informed, they are the ones who raise the maximum escalations. That why, what is happening? Because they're interested, but they're not aware of what's happening. So just keep them informed once in a while, and you are good to go. They'll be satisfied. And then comes the low power, low interest. Well, in these cases, well, most of the time we don't even bother, but you just lightly monitor, watching them to make sure that their position does not change from low power, low interest to any of these others based on the changes in the project. So that is the purpose of power interest grid. Now, when it comes to PMP exam, the power interest grid is considered the default grid, which means if in the examination question, they only talk about prioritization of the stakeholders, by default, you have to remember they're only talking about power interest grid. If they only use the word prioritization of stakeholders, it means power interest grid, because as I said, it is the default grid. But is this the only grid? Absolutely not. There are others, but they will be actually mentioned by name in the question itself. One of them is called Salience Model. Previously, they used to have questions on power influence, influence impact, but now don't have to bother about them because those questions are all gone, right? They don't ask anything on these anymore. Instead, they do ask about Salience Model. Now, what is Salience Model? To be very honest, this is not a prioritization grid. This does not prioritize stakeholders, it only segregates stakeholders, right? And therefore, the salience model has 3 elements on which they segregate. One is called the power, the other one is called legitimacy, and the third one is urgency. Power is power within the entire organization, not to a specific project, but power for getting things done within a project. Legitimacy is people who are involved in the project who will directly either affect the project or get affected by it. And the third one is urgency, people who show a lot of urgency. The intersection of all 3 are the ultimate stakeholders. But then the questions in PMP exams are not that detailed. You'll laugh when I tell you the only kind of questions that show up in PMP exam, and that is uh, either they'll say, hey, which of the following is stakeholder prioritization or segregation or analysis, stakeholder analysis tool? And the answer is like one of the options could write Salience Model. So that will be your answer. The only other question that shows up for Salience Model is, hey, what are the three elements that make up the Salience Model? That's it. And the elements are power, legitimacy, and urgency. Remember, salience, power, legitimacy, and urgency. These are the three elements that make up the salience categorization. That's it. That's all you need to know. All right, so now let's move on to the point number 3. Now here we talk about, again, prioritization of stakeholders, but this time using the cube or the 3D model. Why is it called 3D model? Pretty obvious. It is nothing but the power interest grid with one additional grid to it, and that is attitude. Now, power could be positive, power could be more or less, interest could be more or less, but when it comes to attitude, it's more to do with negative or positive attitude vis-a-vis the project. So you may have a high power in the project, you may have high interest, but at the same time, if you have a negative attitude towards the project, then you become an influential active blocker. You'll have to deal with these people completely differently. Now, on the other hand, if you have high power, high interest like the one here, and have a positive attitude, well, that fellow is an influential active backer. The person is going to support you in the outcome of the project. And therefore, this particular model is again for prioritization. It is just an extension of the legendary power interest model, right? So the power interest grid with the addition of attitude is suddenly called cube or 3D model. It's one way for prioritization. But remember, the default, if in the question they don't give a specific name, just assume it is power interest. The salience model and the 3D model will be named so you would know how to answer the question. Got it? All right, let's move on to point number 4. Now this is in the planning portion. This is the main tool and technique of the process, plan stakeholder engagement. Now, what do we do here? This basically tells us that as per PMI, there are 5 different what I call engagement levels of a stakeholder vis-a-vis a project. One of them is called unaware. The person is not even aware whether the project matters to him or whether the project like that exists. Or the person could be resistant towards the outcome of the project, or they could be neutral. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Or they could be supportive, and there could be a step even more than supportive, that is to be leading. Now, in this stakeholder engagement grid, what do is we simply write down the names of the important stakeholders and figure out, okay, what is their current level? What is their current engagement level? Now, this could be unaware. And now you know that the stakeholder is capable of becoming supportive to the project, or that is best suited to be a supportive. Then every single day, or the way I'm going to communicate with that person on a period of time, I want to see that from his current engagement level, I want him to be at this desired engagement level of supportive. So you can do that for everything. So this is how you create a strategy of dealing with stakeholders, right? Vis-a-vis the project. This is your stakeholder engagement plan is all about. Now, what kind of questions show up? Well, when you talk about engagement, well, engagement levels, this is the engagement grid. So if the question is about what is the tool and technique, or what are the mechanisms that you'll use for planning the engagement of stakeholders, well, you're going to use this engagement grid. Second question, which is more popular than the first one that I just told you, and that is, what are the different engagement levels of stakeholders? Remember, there are 5: unaware, resistant, neutral, supportive, and leading. All right. Moving on to the very last point, and that is connected, obliquely connected to stakeholders, and that is communications, right? Now, communication has a lot to do with the communication channels. Now, what is a communication channel? This person can talk to him and this person can talk to him, and therefore you have one channel of communication. Now, if you have 3 people, you will have 3 channels of communication. But if you have 4 per people in your team, it suddenly becomes 6 channels. But if you have 5 people, it becomes 10. Do you have any idea, if you had 10 people, how many channels of communication? And the answer is 45. Because This is nothing but permutation and combination, a formula that you learned when you were in like probably fifth or sixth class, something like that. N into n minus 1 divided by 2. Permutations, combinations. So if you have 10 people, it becomes n becomes 10. That means the number of people. And then becomes 10 minus 1, which is 9. So 10 into 9, which is 90, divided by 2 gives you 45. Right? Now, why are we talking about this? Because this is such a simple thing, and I'm sure if you get these kind of questions in PMP exams, you're going to ace it. I'm sure you will. And yet, a lot of people are giving the answers wrong. Why is that so? Let me give you an idea. I'll give you a trick. When you are reading the PMP questions where they're talking about channels of communications, keep an eye about the fact whether the project manager has been included in the number of team members or not. If not, increase it by 1. That'll give you the right N. Now let me give you an example. If I say that you're a project manager with a team of 5 people working under you, and after some time 2 more people got added to your project, and therefore tell me what is the difference of channels of communications, by how much your channels of communications have increased. Obviously, you have to calculate n into n minus 1 divided by 2, this formula twice. One without the extra 2 people and one after the extra 2 people. And yet you will get the wrong answer. Why? Because look at the very first statement that I just said. You are a project manager with 5 people working under you. So are there 5 people? Is the value of n 5 or is it 6? And then you'll say, whoa, wait a second, that's 6. That's how people get it wrong. So when you read the question, make sure whether the project manager is included in the team or not. For example, if I restate the statement, I say, hey, you guys are a group of 6 people, and after some time, 2 more people get involved. So now n is 6 because it says you are a group of 6 people. That means you are included, and in total you are 6 people. Now 2 more people get added, so now it'll become 8, right? So this is how you have to understand. Otherwise, calculation for channels of communications is easy. But now I've told you the guru mantra, the real mantra. Anyway, this brings us to the end of this particular topic. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and press the notification bell so that you make sure that you get notified for every day's video that I'm putting in, which will help you till the time you give the exam for acing and getting the information needed for acing PMP exam. Do work with me. If you have any suggestions, comments, go ahead and do that so that I can interact with you. If you have any doubts, any suggestions, any question that you that need my suggestions from my side, go ahead and do that. I'd love to interact with you. And as a philosophy, we do not advertise. We do not do any paid promotions, and therefore, please go ahead and help us by letting us know, to other people. Share. Right? And if you go ahead and press the thumbs up mark, well, that's going to do wonders with the entire algorithm of YouTube. They're going to show it to more people, and therefore it'll help more people. Once again, thank you for watching, and best of luck for your PMP exams.